Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming for this session on a wet evening. The, we'll be talking about Indian sport, and I think the session is called Bullseye, and it's appropriate that we have with us Colonel Rathore, क्योंकि इनका निशाना कभी चूका नहीं. He is a unique personality in the sense that he is a top outstanding sports person, a sports administrator, and a policy maker. So in a way, to use a cricket phrase, he's a true all-time great all-rounder. Also with us, Manoj, who, like Colonel Rathore, is a champion in the sense that he's made a huge commercial success of the IPL. And that's an example which I think is of use not only to Indian sport, but to people running any sport anywhere in the world. I think the IPL is such a great success story. So I think we'll hear more from Manoj as we go along with the discussion. Harini is, as mentioned by the person who introduced us, has worked in sport for a very long time, and especially in the field of women and sport with the UN and as a journalist with the Times Group. So while we are talking about Indian sport in the future, let me take you back a bit. We start by going back. 2004, Athens Olympics, Colonel Rathore is shooting in the final for a medal, contesting for the gold. And the situation is that he has to fire 50 shots. And in the end, he knows that he's down to the last 4. And if he misses even one, he loses out on a medal. So that's the kind of pressure he was participating in. And we know that he made it. And he was the first Indian to win an Olympic silver medal. So Colonel Rathore, please take us through what happened at that moment when you know everything was at stake, one miss and you lost it.
Thank you, Amrit. Thank you also to my panelists who are sitting here, and a very, shall I say, warm good evening to Jaipur for an unconventional weather. I don't know if it's a conventional subject, but it's a pleasure interacting with all of you. Now, ultimately in Olympics, you're basically preparing for 4 years at the least for those few seconds and the critical ones. In the best of the competitions, you will always find, Amrit, that at least 7 to 8 athletes will be of the same caliber, of the same potential. And yet, only 3 will get onto the podium. Yeah. So basically, it boils down to your nerves. Yeah. And I'd like to say here that what do you do in those 4 years? People say practice. But you know, there's a very popular saying that practice makes you perfect. When you play professional sports, you need to tweak this saying, and you say, perfect practice makes you perfect. Which is that on a daily basis, every day, you train your subconscious mind by consciously training the perfect way, so that it becomes gradually habit. And then you can perform under pressure. When your mind gets clouded, you don't see anything, your hands are shaking, your nerves are jittery, you fall back to the very thing that you've done 1,000 times or more. And that's how you go through it. So the last 4 shots that you were talking, if any of you sees the YouTube video of it, those are the perfect timed shots. It's only because, you know, I tell myself that it's not the medal. It's not the medal I'm looking for. It's my honor that I'm looking for. And my honor means I do exactly what I've trained to do and just leave the rest to God. And that's how it happens.
So it is, at that moment, it is relief or celebration, or both?
It's a sense of relief initially because you've worked hard for many, many years. You've gone through very tough times. So there's a sense of relief that you've been able to do it. And you don't feel the enthusiasm at that point of time. At some of the later tournaments, I had to artificially choreograph a thumbs up in the air, you know, like that. So I said, because the photographers are looking for that. And unfortunately, you're so poised, you're so grounded at that point of time that you don't feel like celebrating. So yes, it's like a relief that you've done it.
You mentioned that you went through hard times while training to make it to that level. And it wasn't very easy because there's lack of support and you struggled. So tell us about the problems you faced and how hard was it to reach that level?
So at that point of time, people would usually say that, you do it despite the system, which means that there wasn't a system existing which could, put you through a channel or through a pipeline which would have all the right resources, resources in terms of equipment, in terms of coaching, in terms of sports science, in terms of mental training and everything. And then you come out the pipeline as a winner. Some of the countries have those pipelines. That's a system which we did not have at that point of time. But again, Amrit, so some of the youngsters who are sitting here, I would like to add that no amount of resources can make you a champion. If you have the will, Ichha Shakti, or the burning desire to do it, then nothing can stop you from. And I would like to add here that when we win against China, for example, or America, for example, we can beat them. For sure we can beat them. But we know that when we are beating their best, at least 10 equally best are waiting in line to get into the ring. Whereas for our country, we have perhaps one odd brilliant star that comes up. That's where a system is required. And that's where I think in a conversation ahead, I will tell you as how from 2014 onwards, things have changed. Because a leadership, somebody has to take a step forward and bring about changes. A lot of things like leagues happening, systems being put in place are already happening. So there's a remarkable difference between what used to be back then than what is now. And I'm proud of the change that is happening.
So let's talk about the pipeline. When you were pursuing shooting, obviously there was no pipeline. And it is your desire, your drive, which made you reach where you did. But now there's a pipeline, which is supporting athletes. We have the Target Olympic Podium scheme. And it's much easier compared to your time for athletes now to get the best of coaching, training, international exposure, and assistance. So tell us about the top scheme a bit.
So two things. One is the Khelo India, and the other is the Target Olympic Podium. I'll briefly touch upon Khelo India because at an age when you are about, let's say, 15, 16, 17 years old, your parents know that you have the potential. You have the drive to become a champion. But at that point of time, no sponsor or corporate will look at you or hold your hand. They want you to first win the Olympic medal, and then they'll come here as sponsorships. So at that point of time, who comes to hold your hand? Now, some of the best nations have this system, like American college games. You get into the best of the colleges based on your ability to perform in the field of sports. And they're very proud to have you in their colleges. And so you get education, and because of that, you get fantastic equipment, resources, and everything that is available. China would have a similar system. So in India, now with Khelo India, that's the time when 1,000 athletes are selected every year. 1,000 athletes are selected every year. And each of those 1,000 athletes are getting sponsorship for 8 years in a row. So 5 lakh rupees per year in 8 years in a row. Now that's a good amount of money at that age, and it's a boost. So today we have about 6,000 athletes who are undergoing this training, and so we will have a bench strength that countries like China have. Now you were asking about TOPS, and so you were part of it in formalizing the TOPS initially. So TOPS is a system which is like commandos in the army. So you select the best and you train them specially, and they do special operations. So in sports, the special operation is getting you an Olympic medal. So you select some of the best and you give them anything that they want under the sun. Literally anything under the sun. And I'll name an athlete, or rather let me not name an athlete, but I'll let you know of one of the athletes who had a problem very recently, who was one of the protesters. We allowed him to go and train abroad in whichever country he want, and we sent masalchi also with him so that he could get the food that he wants. Now that is the level of support that Target Olympic Podium provides. That you not only go and train yourself, you take your comfort zone with you, and you train there. And not just that, you get about 50,000 rupees as pocket allowance and no auditing for it. I mean, that's a huge amount of money.
I want to interrupt you there.
For 50,000 rupees as a pocket allowance. Yeah.
Let me just give you some information about the top scheme. It started before he became the minister, but Khelo India was entirely his brainchild, and it takes sport to different states in a much deeper manner. More people get opportunities, etc. But in the top scheme, we started on a very modest scale, but he came and enhanced it and implemented it in a very nice manner. He mentioned this issue of 50,000 rupees as a pocket allowance. When we started, I proposed this, and it was turned down, saying, "Paise se nahi kya zarurat hai." But he saw the reason that a person who's committing himself to Indian sport for a long time needs some money. He needs to have some money with him, maybe give some money to his family, etc. So he was a pro-player administrator. And I remember also that when he took office as the Minister of Sport, he said that we need to be friendly in terms of our approach to sportsmen. And he talked of what is called Suvidha and Samman. We should give every possible facility that the sportsperson requires, and we must give him respect. So that's just to fill you in on the top and the Khelo.
So I'll just add, for example, how do you make things easier for a sportsman, a top athlete? I remember when we would go out, and just like an anecdote, when we would go out in the morning, I would carry 3 sets of clothes, and I would carry 2 sort of tiffins with me, because morning started with training. Then you would change into a dress that you could go into the ministries, and then you would push your file. And you would sit for hours there pushing your file. The same peons that I later interacted with as a minister. So we would push files there, and then change again, eat, go to the gym, work out there. So you had to do all of this. So what we did was, and it was, see, Prime Minister, when he was CM of Gujarat, he used to conduct these games there. And he said that, can we not create an environment where the youngsters have an atmosphere which is as good as, let's say, the Asian Games or the Commonwealth Games. And that's how Khelo India was born. And he was the one who said, when we were thumping our chest and saying that we are doing everything for the top athletes of the country, he turned around and said, "Inko jeb kharch kaun deta hai?" So we were stumped there, and that's how 50,000 rupees started. But we started this relationship manager for the top athletes. So like, if some of the bankers are sitting here, they would know that, some of the top clients, they service with relationship managers. So we started relationship managers for our top athletes. And the athlete didn't have to go anywhere with this file. The relationship manager would do everything and hand it over to them at their home. So that's the sort of systems we put in place at that point of time.
You mentioned that while you were struggling, there's nobody to hold your hand. And after you won, did many people want to shake your hand? Did they?
Well, I was one of the first Indian Army soldiers to be able to do advertising. So that's a big thing at that point of time. And the sponsorships and advertising and all of these things help athletes with the commercial support, which the leagues have now started doing, which is a fantastic thing. I'm all for it. For example, some of the Army athletes are now have it much easier because I pioneered the permissions to get to do advertisements. So for me, it took 1 year to get permissions. But yes, I think there's always a charm to be a pioneer, right? Sometimes you have it tough, sometimes you have it easy.
So let me bring Manoj into the conversation. As a successful sports venture, and hugely successful sports venture, what role do you see for corporates and for leagues like the IPL to participate in the growth of Indian sport?
Firstly, I just want to talk a bit about Indian sport and just how it has changed. And I've seen it in from a different perspective to Colonel
from
Singh.
outside.
Because obviously while I was born here, I spent much of my life living outside of India. And I always remember as a kid growing up just how embarrassed you felt as an Indian when it came to sport. And it was moments like Colonel Singh's victory, which I still remember, moments like 1983 with the Cricket World Cup. But those moments were few and far between. And there's always been a bit of a paradox in my mind between the fact that we have a quarter of the world's population under the age of 25, we have a sixth of the world's population, and yet globally, we've not been as competitive as we could be. So to be a part of the IPL, which has transformed cricket, but also I think transformed foreigners' view of India. I think it's been one of the most successful exports from India. It's transformed how other people see Indian athletes. I think it's been a real privilege. And I think the role for corporates and the role for private investors like myself is important. We have to work hand in hand with government. We have to work hand in hand with the associations. But like any industry that is seeking to get to new levels, you need investment. And there are a bit like when Colonel Singh won his silver medal, he had a lot of new friends and new followers. There's a lot of people who've made the IPL successful. But the truth is, the IPL has been successful because it's been a combination of an association with forward thinking, government support at lots of levels, state and regional, but also private investment. And without the $200 or $300 million of private investment that went in, you're not able to make the investments in infrastructure, the investments in marketing, the investments in the system that the Colonel referred to support the athletes in the best possible way. And if you don't attract the very best athletes to competitions like the IPL, then you don't create that virtuous circle of success.
Manoj, I agree with what you're saying about the reasons for the success of the IPL and also how it's helped change the perception of Indian sport from people looking at it from outside. But my point was, IPL now has been 16 years.
Yep.
Why is IPL not part of Indian sport? It's an island. It's an island of success and huge commercial success. To what prevents it from joining hands with Indian sport, Rajasthan government, whatever? Is there a hitch? Is there an impediment?
Yeah, look, I think it's a really good question. I think there's two or three parts to the answer to that question. One is we're still a country where we have one sport that dominates. And I think that will change over time. Cricket getting into the Olympics will raise the profile of the Olympics, and that in turn will raise the profile of other sports here. I think the IPL has created a league model that something like 25 other sports now in India have tried to emulate. We have the Indian Soccer League, we have the Indian Hockey League, the Indian Kabaddi League. And so I do think it's created a model that's allowed other sports to. But until the kids want to play those other sports, there's nothing the IPL can do. I think one area where we've been slow is how the IPL and how the franchises work with government. I think we have to work much more closely, especially with the regional governments, to invest in infrastructure, invest in academies, and jointly invest in the systems so that it's not a government initiative or a franchise initiative, it's actually a joint initiative.
So is this an offer to the government of Rajasthan to work with them?
I would love to work with them. I mean, we've had our challenges, I'm not going to lie. We've had our challenges with both government here and with the association here.
I think it's not fair for me to ask you this question, but would you want a more active participation of the corporate world in sport, in sport promotion, development, more incentives, the entire ecosystem of sport? Does it need a more active partnership?
So let me answer this question by saying that before 2014, most of the academies around India were Sports Authority of India run academies. We made a conscious choice that some of the athletes who've been international athletes, who've been medalists, they have the passion, right? If they are provided the resources, then they would be able to run or at least drive the academy much better than as compared to a completely government-run academy. And so I can fairly say that today we have Ashwini Nachappa Sports Academy, we have Anju Bobby George Sports Academy, we have P.T. Usha Sports Academy, we have Gagan Narang's Shooting Academy. And it was a conscious choice that let's invest in the experts and fund them. We have Abhinav Bindra's scientific training centers. So 60% of our academies, sports academies today are run by our top athletes. So that's a good decision. And I'm obviously, I completely agree that the government needs to invest in infrastructure and let the experts run it. I would be more than happy to set up centers of excellence which are a contributory factor, contributory in terms of land funding from government of Rajasthan, but run by corporates, right? So the day-to-day functioning are by corporates and by the top athletes. And so you have the best of the coaches and everyone there. And when government of Rajasthan or government of India sends its teams to those academies, then we pay for it. Yeah, but that limited amount. And rest of the time it's open to some of the other good young players to come and use that facility. So that's how it needs to be.
So the model is that the government does the basic investment of infrastructure, which is very large. The private sector and the corporates come up with expertise of management, governance, the best, I think, coaching, etc. So it's a win-win for both. And as a result, sports develops.
Yeah, so look at, what is that, one of the GSW?
Yeah, the Vijayanagar facility.
So JSW has done a fantastic job by setting up an academy, and AU has done a fantastic job here in Rajasthan by creating competitions for young children, so they get a platform, a well-organized coaches-backed system wherein they're training as well in creating competitions. Now, this is and I would not hesitate in saying that this is commercially a very sensible idea. When the young children get associated by remembering a name, their families, their parents will never forget that particular company. Right? It becomes part of the system. So I think it's a great idea, and especially when a lot of these corporates talk about young India. Let us also hear that what are they doing for young India, right? So we need to see as to whether they are really doing what they are saying.
I think before we go into the next segment of our chat about our vision, where we would like Indian sport to be down the line, let me just bring Harini into the conversation. You worked a lot with women and sport. So how has the landscape changed last 10, 15 years, and what work is going on?
I think in terms of, obviously when Colonel mentioned that in his days it was a challenge to be where he is, we can only imagine how challenging the path would be for girls in sport. And I speak for myself, when I wanted to be an athlete, I did not have a pathway to pursue that career, right? I played in school a little bit of cricket, but I come from metro city like Mumbai, but still there was no pathway. This is in 2000s. And thankfully, I still got an opportunity to be associated with sport in a different form as a broadcaster and also involved in the management and the business side of sport. I know how challenging it was, because today when I look back at this platform, I think if I would have had mentors who would have guided me, I know I probably would have been at a better position in terms of just understanding of the ecosystem, contributing more towards that ecosystem. And I completely agree with the fact that challenges are part of our journey, but I think if it's slightly easier, it works well for everybody. And today when I am representing India at the United Nations as a generation equality ally for women in sport, the idea is that, let's amplify conversations, let's amplify stories, because at the end, as a country, we're always looking for individuals, and that inspires us. We're always looking for inspiration. So creating pathways is one of the things that we need to focus on, because as everyone's been mentioning, right, when we're looking at creating champions, it has to be ground up. And that's the main factor, that we need to create a pathway for parents as well. And now I know that the policies are being drafted where education policy involves sports as an integral part of participation. Initiatives like Khelo India, corporates coming in, it just contributes. And also media in terms of coverage, right? Just amplifying the voices of people through social media, through content, that also plays its part.
Okay, thanks. Colonel Saab, what would be your vision of overall, if you look at the larger picture about Indian sport? It's 2004 when you won the medal. We had 20 years since. So next 15, 20 years, where would you like Indian sport to be and what needs to be done for that?
So when we are talking about hosting the Olympics hopefully in 2036, obviously we are an economic superpower now, or at least on the way to becoming a superpower. So I think it's rightful that the entire world is now looking at India to host the Olympics. But as an athlete and as a proud citizen of this country, where I know that, and I'll tell you, I'm saying this because you'll have to go back a couple of decades when people would say that brown-skinned people do not win at the Olympics, right? I'm coming from that mindset. And now we beat everybody, any color, we beat them, right? It doesn't matter which color really. So I very proudly feel that we should not only be hosting, but in 2036, we should be winning multiple gold medals there. And I think Rajasthan will be one of the frontiers in that. Today, we can plan and set up systems so that a 10-year-old today, when he or she is 22, they'll be ready to win the 100-meter gold medal in 2036 Olympics. It should be like that. That's how we should plan, and that's how we are doing. I'll also mention here that because of the corporates coming in, because of the leagues coming in different sports, badminton, table tennis, wrestling, kabaddi, cricket, and many other sports, it's becoming a viable career. It's becoming a viable career now, which is very important for parents to allow their kids to pursue. And also for kids to have a dream. See, kids need to see an icon. They need to see a hero and say, I want to be like that. And that hero can't be a person who takes multiple retakes. You get what I'm saying? You agree? A hero can't be somebody who takes multiple retakes in a movie. A hero has to be a real hero, right? So we have opportunities in our country for real heroes who face real situations and who don't give up. And that's what makes an icon. So be it girls or be it boys or be it anyone else, this is what we need to be doing. We have the economic power. Yeah. We have now systems coming in where it's commercially viable. We are setting up academies, and we have the potential to do well in any sport, be it strength, be it speed, or be it anything else. So the vision, the long-term vision is that for India to really project itself, one of the best soft powers is the power of sport. And I always tell this, that the only way to get your country's flag going up and have all other countrymen stand up and salute it is through sports and not through a military invasion, right? So it's through sports that they will be happy to stand up for your national anthem. And this is what we ought to be doing. So India is doing well in every way. We have a very good leadership. It's setting up benchmarks now in every sphere, and sport should not be left behind at all.
You know, 2036 is a few years away, and I'm sure your optimism succeeds and comes about in terms of winning multiple goals. But closer home, Rajasthan, I think that's a story where there has been a slump from good days from now, where there's been a decline of sorts. So as sports minister, I think that's something you need to fix.
So Amrit is egging me on because we've had a private discussion and he knows what's in my mind. I haven't said it openly because I want the chief minister to announce this. But he's egging me on to say it. But I'll hold on to my cards. But yes, we will plan in Rajasthan a policy that gets private players in to train. The government will support. We will also look for 10-year-olds so that by 2036 we can train them. This is the best that I can share with all of you. But certainly, Rajasthan has the potential, has tremendous potential. How come a state like Haryana, which is like a few kilometers away from a border, how can they have the talent and we not have? So it's not possible. We have the talent. It's just that we need to create that pipeline. We need to create that sort of environment. And I can certainly share that I've had a conversation with the education minister, and it's very important that schools and education and sports teachers, your PTIs, get involved in all of this. And a PTI or a physical teacher in the school is not a spare teacher, right? This is what a lot of people feel. Ki khali kaun hai? Oh, sports wal. No. He or she is the person who can actually build a character, find solutions to everything that the student is facing. So चरित्र निर्माण और व्यक्तित्व निर्माण की जिम्मेदारी जो है वो स्कूलों के अंदर वो पीटीआई के ऊपर सबसे ज़्यादा होती है. So I feel we will also bring them into our sort of system and train the PTIs. We'll train the trainers program where we will train them and get them included in our system.
You know, forgive my cricket connection, but I remember Sachin Tendulkar talking about how Indian sport has progressed. But he said, I want one thing to happen, that instead of being a sports-loving country, we should become a sports-playing country. What do you think?
Very true. Let me ask you, आपके मोहल्लों में पिछली बार कब मुकाबला हुआ था? एक साल में किसी का हुआ था तो हाथ खड़ा करिए.
किसी का हाथ नहीं
There
खड़ा
you
हुआ.
are. So
किसी का नहीं हुआ.
let me tell you, if you have a competition in your own locality, in your colony, and you pat the back of few of those who do well, they will believe what a hero feels like. They are heroes at that time. And a lot of other kids would want to be hero the next time you have a competition. And you don't need much infrastructure for that. I mean, don't you remember playing cricket in school corridors? Hello? School corridors. Kis-kisne cricket khela hai school corridor mein? There you go. Right? So we don't need an Olympic-sized stadium. Remember, champions don't come out of five-star academies. They don't come out of air-conditioned gymnasium. They come out of garages. You need to create that garage. And you need to start playing.
I think we've got only a few minutes before we get into the question-answer session. But one question to all of you. 10 years or 20 years down the line, where do you see Indian sport? And what would you like to happen? Manoj, you first.
What I would like to happen is that we have a generation of political leaders who are as convinced as Colonel Singh is about the importance of sport. We've talked a lot about participation, and we've talked a lot about government, and we've talked a lot about leagues. What we really have to do is change the attitude to sport. And the minute the attitudes change, at governmental levels, at corporate levels, at educational levels, I used to have to lie to my parents about playing when I was playing sport, because it was seen as time away from my textbooks. And what we have to do is change attitudes about sport. And so my wish would be that in 20 years' time, sport is seen as integral to the country's development in the way that Colonel Singh has articulated so beautifully today.
Harini, what is the change you want to see?
I would definitely want to see sport become part of our life in a way where we are actively participating and taking it up, because definitely, like, if you look at the Olympic contingent, we have so many girls. Majority of our contingent is driven by women. And I definitely think that every household, हर घर में at least अगर लड़की हो तो उनके parents उन्हें push करें कि आप कुछ pursue करें sport, या तो hobby के लिए या खेलने के लिए professionally, or be involved in the sport ecosystem, because that is also a profession that you can be equally involved in. So that's what I see 10 years down the line or 20 years down the line.
I think before I ask you, I just want to share a fact with everybody. India has been participating in the Olympics for 128 years. And in this 128 years, only 21 individuals have won medals. So that's how tough it is. But your last word on where would you like Indian sport to be in 10 years from now?
So I completely agree with my co-panelists here, that sport has to become a part of our life, integral life. Now, be it just mere participation and playing for fitness, for health, for entertainment, or be it for excellence, I think we all need to play more. I think your levels of concentration goes up, your levels of feeling good, happy goes up. All of you would remember when you're playing cricket. I'll give the example of cricket because we have a cricket dominance here. When you're playing cricket, when you are just about to face a ball, are you thinking of anything else? No, you're only thinking of the ball, which means that sport allows you to live in the moment. And living in the moment is the happiest time. There is no past, there is no future. The present is beautiful, right? So live in the moment is through sports, and that's how you become happy and healthy. So it has to become a part of our lives. And with this, I can also add that if our children have to choose a future, they cannot choose a future, but they can choose habits. And if they choose good habits, then the habits will choose a future for them. So it has to become part of our life. And there, after that will come excellence. If we all love playing sport, we will love watching. And if we love watching, then we have an audience which is ready-made. And that's how sports will excel in our country.
Thank you very much. I think we have time for some questions from the audience. The gentleman here.
गुड इवनिंग राठौर सर. सबसे पहले तो आपको लगातार राजस्थान की पॉलिटिक्स में 3 मेडल जीतने पर बहुत बहुत बधाई. मेरा ये कहना है कि जिस तरह से आपने 10 साल में जयपुर ग्रामीण में खेल को बढ़ाया, जगह जगह स्पोर्ट्स स्टेडियम बनाए, उसके लिए आपको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. अब आप राजस्थान की सरकार में खेल मंत्री है. मेरा ये मानना है कि बच्चों को भविष्य बनाने के लिए जिस तरह से नौकरी के लिए बच्चा भागता है, तो स्पोर्ट्स में अगर कोटा 2% से बढ़ाकर 5% कर दिया जाए तो बच्चों को और भी अच्छा खेलने के प्रति प्रोत्साहन मिलेगा. धन्यवाद.
धन्यवाद आपके प्रश्न के लिए और आपके प्रोत्साहन के लिए भी. ये 2% भी अगर हम सही तरह कर दें तो वो बहुत बड़ी बात होगी. कमी अभी क्या है कि हम जो 2% होता है वो 2% भी सही तरह उसका प्रचार नहीं कर पाते, सही खिलाड़ी नहीं ला पाते. हमें ये करना बहुत ज़रूरी है कि हर विभाग के अंदर जो 2% बताया गया है उसमें 2% 100% जाएं. पहले ये करना चाहिए हमारे को और उसको करेंगे हम.
एक सेकेंड, राइट एट द बैक, वहाँ पे बिल्कुल पीछे. या द लेडी आस्किंग द क्वेश्चन देयर एट द बैक.
Hello, good evening. I have a question for ma'am. So I used to play sports in high school, and I'm actually a state level football and national athletics. But when I came to university, I found out that the resources for women were very less. So I wanted to ask how we can motivate the organizations, universities and schools so that we can encourage more women playing.
I think
You want to answer that?
yes.
Yeah.
I think she asked for me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
listen
yeah,
for me. आई थिंक ये आपकी जो कहानी है मेरी भी वैसी ही थी. मैं स्कूल में खेलती थी लेकिन आई कुडंट परस्यू क्योंकि पाथवे नहीं था. और हमारी कंट्री में आई थिंक पॉलिसी हैज़ टू बी अ ड्राइविंग फैक्टर. जब पॉलिसी चेंज होंगी तो थिंग्स इम्प्लीमेंट होंगी. और जैसे आप कह रहे हो यूनिवर्सिटी गेम्स स्पेशली विद खेलो इंडिया राइट, वो कुछ गैप्स ब्रिज हो रहे हैं because they are reaching out not only to schools, teenage, but also universities are getting involved in having those opportunities. So I think it's more pathway create करना चाहिए. And जैसे कि अभी government कर रही है, मुझे लग रहा है कि if you are patient enough for 5 years, maybe our generation has missed it, but at least for the coming generation, they will have a proper pathway right from under 15 to under 19 to under 23. कि कुछ टूर्नामेंट्स हो जहाँ पे प्लेयर्स गेट प्लेटफॉर्म इरिस्पेक्टिव ऑफ जेंडर. सो आई थिंक दैट हैज़ टू कम फ्रॉम अ पॉलिसी चेंज एंड आई सी दैट हैपनिंग. और मुझे लग रहा है कर्नल साहब विल बी इन अ बेटर पोजीशन टू आंसर इन टर्म्स ऑफ राजस्थान पर्सपेक्टिव. बट आई थिंक पैन इंडिया पर्सपेक्टिव ये एफर्ट चल रहा है और हम देख रहे हैं रिजल्ट्स.
No, first of all, let's give her a big hand for being a sportsman and being a footballer. Very nice.
Thank you so
Now,
much.
I'll just answer that there's a generational shift taking place. I remember जब जयपुर ग्रामीण के अंदर 2014 में हमने सेना भर्ती शुरू करी, उसकी ट्रेनिंग शुरू करी. सो लड़कियां आकर मुझे बोलती थी कि हमें भी सेना में जाना है. और मैं उस समय सोचता था ये कब होगा, ये कैसे होगा, और वो भी अब हो गया है. सो सेना के अंदर लड़कियां जा रही हैं, उनके लिए 33% रिजर्वेशन भी है CAPF के अंदर, सेना में भी जा रही हैं, तो ये सब संभव हो रहा है। उसी के साथ साथ खेलों के अंदर भी अब लड़कियों के लिए बहुत स्कोप है पदक जीतने का, क्योंकि इंटरनेशनली द विमेन स्पोर्ट्स नाउ ओलंपिक्स makes it compulsory to have more women sports. So some of the sports are being dropped to include women sports. So all of this is happening. So, and the generations are also ready to play.
Yes, I hope I see that in the future as
I'll
well.
also add here, जैसे हम सब सांसद खेल कराते हैं, so Prime Minister is now emphasizing कि केवल लड़कियों के लिए खेल करवाओ. So this mindset is coming that gives the girls an opportunity to play.
Thank you so much.
The person here सामने आप खड़े होइए, हाँ, माइक दीजिए इनको.
थैंक यू सर. नमस्ते सर, निधीश गोयल. सर मेरा प्रश्न इसलिए है बिकॉज आपने जो कहा कि 10 साल के जो बच्चे हैं, बिकॉज मेरा बेटा 10 साल का है और वो अपने स्कूल में स्क्वैश खेलता है, तो लगता है कि आगे कुछ उम्मीदें आपने एक तो जगा दी हैं सर, उसके लिए थैंक यू वेरी मच. एंड द अदर पॉइंट जो आपने कहा कि गैरेजेस में से चीज़ें निकलती हैं, कई बार देखते हैं सर बच्चों को खेलने की जगह उनके घर के आसपास नहीं मिल रही है. जो आसपास गार्डन्स हैं, वहाँ ट्रैक्स हैं, तो वॉक कर रहे हैं सब कुछ, तो अगर खेलने जाते भी हैं तो नहीं यहाँ मत खेलो, यहाँ पर हम लोग घूमते हैं या फिर हम लोग यहाँ पर बैठते हैं. तो वो जो आसपास की जगह है उसे कैसे ढूंढा जाए, उसे कैसे तलाशा जाए, जिससे कि कॉम्पिटिटिव स्कूल्स के एग्जाम्स के माहौल में हम स्पोर्ट्स के लिए अपना समय और अच्छे से निकाल सकें सर. थैंक यू सर.
निधीश जो बात कर रहे हैं वो बात कर रहे हैं proliferation of sports fields. That's number one, कि इतनी सारी स्पोर्ट्स फील्ड्स हो जाएं कि हमें अपने स्थान से ज़्यादा दूर ना जाना पड़े. Certainly that's something to look forward to. और अभी तो ये है कि अच्छी स्पोर्टिंग एरिनाज बने और कोई ऐसी जगह खेलने के लिए हम जा पाएँ जहाँ जाकर भी आनंद आए, देखने में भी आनंद आए. सो ये करना बहुत ज़रूरी है, क्योंकि आपका बेटा 10 साल का है और यहाँ पे बहुत सारे ऐसे होंगे या जो टीवी पे भी देख रहे होंगे. मेरी एक राय है आपको, वो ये है कि आपके बच्चे के ऊपर अपनी उम्मीदें ना पालें, वो प्रेशर ना डालें, उसको एंजॉय करने दें स्पोर्ट को. उसके दिमाग में अभी से मत डालिए कि आपको बनना है. उसके दिमाग में हो वो ठीक है, आपके दिमाग में नहीं होना चाहिए. देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ डिफरेंस. आप समझ रहे हो ना, देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ डिफरेंस. जब वो समझता है कि मेरे फादर ये चाहते हैं, आप बोलो बेटा आप एंजॉय करो, लेट हिम थिंक दैट नो आई वांट टू बी अ चैंपियन. आप क्या मजाक कर रहे हो, एंजॉय करो, आई वांट टू बी अ चैंपियन. वो दैट इज एक्सेप्टेबल. सेकंड थिंग इज, इफ योर सन और डॉटर इज ऑलरेडी डूइंग वेल, don't make them a celebrity right now. If they become celebrity at a very young age, they'll burn out, right? So let them be just normal kids. So anyway, lots of things to share.
I think one last question, this young girl in the front.
Good evening, sir. Sir, I want to ask you one thing. Like, what thought you had when you had your Olympic match? Just before that, what were you thinking? Was I audible? So what was your thought before your match?
No, I've heard a question. The question is so difficult that I am taking time. हाँ. रात को जब आप चलते हो और आप टॉर्च ऑन करते हो, तो आपको केवल रास्ता दिखाई देता है. स्पोर्ट्स से, कंपटीशन से पहले आपको केवल वही दिखना चाहिए जो आपको करना है, उसके अलावा कुछ नहीं दिखना चाहिए. सो दैट इज वन वे ऑफ एक्सप्लेनिंग कि मेरे दिमाग में क्या था. ऑल्सो इज अ लॉट ऑफ बैटल विद इन. आपका प्रेशर है, ज़बरदस्त प्रेशर है. मैं आपको बताऊं तो मैंने हाथ ऊपर करा ओलंपिक में कुछ नापने के लिए, और कैमराज इतने सारे थे, मेरा हाथ ऐसे ऐसे हिल रहा था, मैंने हाथ नीचे कर लिया जल्दी से. सो यू आर शिवरिंग, यू आर शेकिंग, बट एट द टाइम ऑफ डिलीवरी फॉर दोज 2 seconds you are absolutely calm, and then you again start, that pressure starts building up, then you are again calm. So you go through these phases because you have to focus only on the process, and the path is only one. There are not multiple paths, the path is only one. So you focus on that, and you have to जैसे वो गीता में लिखा हुआ है ना कि आप कर्म करो, फल की चिंता मत करो, उसको असली में चरितार्थ ऐसे बड़े लेवल के कंपटीशन में ही कर सकते हैं जब आप फल की चिंता मत करो, सिर्फ अपना कर्म करते रहो, फल अपने आप आपके सामने आ जाएगा, वही होता है.
We are totally out of time. Thank you very much, members of the discussion. Harini, Rathore, Manoj, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.